Hello, everyone, and welcome to Living Healthy and Aging Well. My name is Ken Hageland, and we are broadcasting live from the AM 950 radio station that overlooks beautiful Bryant Lake Regional Park, located in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Actually, it is another beautiful day here. I say that every weekend, but it always is just a great day here in the Twin Cities. So all of you folks listening across the country, yes, the Twin Cities can be cold at times in the winter, but it is gorgeous right now in the fall, and the leaves are turning, and it is fabulous. I am so grateful to be here with you today, and I hope all of you listening are doing well. We are on the air every Saturday from noon to 1 to talk about your health and your life. We cover a wide range of topics to help you and your loved ones improve and enjoy your quality of life. We have another great show for you today. Joining me in a few minutes will be Rachel Schroman and her brother Steve Schroman, and they are here to share how it's never too late in life to find sobriety and healing. As you may know, Rachel is an estate planning and elder law attorney and owner of Schroman Law. She's been here several times before over the years, and we sure appreciate her being here today with her brother. I want to thank all of you that leave us messages on our radio show phone line. We appreciate hearing from you, and we welcome your comments, questions, and topics for future shows. Also, if you are interested in being a guest on our radio show, please call or text us at 612-999-3426. You can also contact us on our website at livinghealthyradio.com. There you can find information about upcoming guests as well as listen to our previous shows. And we look forward to hearing from you. We are adding new listeners to the show each week, not only here in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, but also throughout the country. You can find podcasts for all of our radio shows on the AM 950 radio website, and we can also be found on iTunes, Spotify, and many other podcast and streaming services. You can also watch our broadcast live on the radio station's Facebook page at AM 950 Radio. All right, let's jump into our show today. I am really excited about this. I want to welcome my guests, Rachel Schroman and Steve Schroman. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, as I mentioned to you before the show, the audience always wants to know a little bit about the guests that are on. And Rachel, we've had you here before, but why don't you give us a little background about you, and we'll go to Steve then afterwards.
Yeah. A lot of people know the professional background, estate planning and elder law attorney, owner of Schroman Law. I guess on a personal note and kind of in line with the topic today, I've been in recovery since 2012. I am pretty active in that community, and my recovery story aligns pretty closely with my dad finding recovery later in life, which we'll be discussing today.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. All right. And Steve, give us a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm also in recovery as of May of last year. Went to treatment in Colorado, started my journey, ended up moving to St. Paul. Actually left treatment, never went back home. Made a complete surrender into changing my everyday centered around recovery. Currently getting my master's in Hazelden Betty Ford for licensed alcohol and drug counselor, from inspiration with working with my counselors and therapists from treatment up until present day. So.
Wow, fantastic. Now, you did mention to me before the show about Harley Davidsons.
Mm-hmm.
So you were involved with the Harley Davidson industry for a while, motorcycles.
Yeah, I was a sales manager, finance manager at a Harley dealership in my hometown of Dubuque for, about 15 years.
Wow,
yeah.
Wow, all right.
Mm-hmm. And that not only was maybe our substance use disorder
right.
genetic, but so was the Harley.
Oh,
Harley fanaticism, because Dad, at one point, I think Dad had 8 Harleys.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my gosh.
Big Harley guy. Yeah.
Oh. Well, what do you do with 8 Harleys? I mean,
line them up.
Okay.
Lined them up and he cleaned them.
I was going to say, there's a lot of work involved in maintaining, because, but I tell you what, in the Twin Cities here, I see people still today. I mean, it's beautiful out, but boy, you get these groups that ride together, and it is just so impressive. I mean, just the sound and the rumble, and the cars just seem to move out of the way when these groups come down the highway or down the frontage roads. It's just a lot of fun to see. And I know this is the best time of the year to tour, because the leaves are turning, and we got some. It's Minnesota. We got a lot of trees.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. All right. Well, great. Well, great to have you guys here. Mm-hmm. Well, let's let's dive into our topic because it is so important. Rachel, you've got your law firm. You end up talking to people a lot about, as an elder law attorney, issues that involve aging in life and end of life, and people want to plan and all those kind of things. And of course, in my profession in hospice, we're always talking to people about end of life planning and all the things that go on. It's very very complicated.
Yeah.
To get old
Yep.
and to die in America these days. So, and we all have stories about how people deal with things, and help us to understand some of the features and some of the things that happened with your father in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to start by sharing with the listeners. So today is the 5-year anniversary of when our dad passed away, and it also would have been his 75th birthday. He passed on his 70th birthday, October 26, 2019. And in line with the topic today, when you invited us to be on the show on this date, I was thinking about living healthy and aging well, and really thought about my dad's recovery story and his health journey later in life, because our dad was a Vietnam veteran, lived most of his life with undiagnosed and untreated PTSD, and he was an alcoholic, very active alcoholic his entire life, high functioning, still successful, but miserable, sometimes violent. He suffered from alcoholism. And later in life, a friend of his, I think it was another Vietnam vet, did what's called in the program a 12-step call, which means he reached out to our dad and basically said, "Hey, Ron, life can be different, and here's what I've been through, and here's what helped me." And Dad accepted help, and he went to treatment at the VA hospital in St. Cloud at age 65.
Wow.
And at that time, when he went into treatment, I didn't have much of a relationship with him. Steve did. I did not. But he was close because I was in Minnesota, and I was having my own struggles. I was in law school. I had about one thing that helped me feel okay anytime I was stressed, anxious, sad, anything, and it was alcohol. And even though I wasn't too far down that path, I was starting to notice it and be pretty uncomfortable and not really know what to do. And I visited my dad in treatment and, saw him at the age he was at getting help. And he shared an essay he had wrote that the prompt was, if I had never been to Vietnam. And he said, if I had never been to Vietnam, I wouldn't have been an alcoholic. And if I hadn't been an alcoholic then, and in front of me, he went through a very long list of regrets and how he believed his life would have been different. And that was really, really impactful to me because I thought, at the time I was 24 years old, and I thought, boy, I already feel a little overwhelmed by some of the regrets and some of the struggles I have of the last 10 years of my drinking and coping with a coping mechanism that didn't feel great. And I found recovery that same summer. And it was hard, and there was a lot of sadness and anger to see him, find recovery later in life. Of course, you wish, what if things had been different? And it was also really amazing and really inspirational. And when he did pass, I think we both felt a lot of gratitude that at least there were a few years there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, Steve, tell us a little bit about your experiences with your father, because it sounds like you had a little bit of a different relationship than Rachel did.
Yeah. I lived with Dad when I was 14 and on, and alcohol was a normal part of my life. Our basement was a Harley-Davidson diamond-plated bar with 20 bar stools. It was a normal thing for drinking. It wasn't uncommon where, as I grew older, I was, I'd work in the shop with the motorcycles. I would it was normal to be drinking. It was always around me. Mm-hmm. And I saw Dad and his drinking, and again, it was normal. He was functioning. He would get things done, and he would accomplish them usually with with a can of beer within very close proximity all times. But it was, like I said, normal.
Right.
But as I grew up, I didn't realize I was doing the same. I was following the same. I didn't even realize that my drinking was coping. I thought it was, no, it's my age. I just drank.
Sure.
And of course, that gets through the 20s, the early 20s, and then it's, the late 20s, and I'm just drinking and handling nothing in my life.
Yeah, yeah. Just out of curiosity, were you drinking as a teenager then, or as a younger teenager?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay, so again, that pattern of normalcy just kind of was established younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just went from, sneaking it to, wow, I don't have to sneak it anymore. It's right here.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Wow. All right, well, it's time for a short break. We'll be back in just a few minutes to continue our conversation with Rachel Schroman and Steve Schroman, and they are sharing how it's never too late in life to find sobriety and healing. If you have a question for us, folks, please give us a call, 952-946-6205, or you can directly text us your question at 612-999-3426. I'm Ken Hageland, and you are listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well. All right, welcome back, everyone. You are listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well, where we talk about helping you and your loved ones improve and enjoy your quality of life. My name is Ken Hageland, and joining me today in the AM 950 radio station's main studio is Rachel Schroman and Steve Schroman, brother and sister, and they are sharing how it is never too late in life to find sobriety and healing. And I'll second that, because I see healing happen at the end of life within days and weeks sometimes. So it's something that people should always pursue and always be hopeful for. If you have a question for us, please give us a call, 952-946-6205, or you can text us at 612-999-3426. All right, last segment we were kind of talking about introducing your guys' story. And I thought it was so interesting, Steve, when you were talking about kind of just growing up in an environment that kind of normalized drinking, and not that having a drink is bad,
Right.
But it's about how you depend on that to help you kind of get through or deal or cope. I mean, it's all about how do we all cope with things, and some people it's food.
Yeah.
Some people it's TV. And I think it's so interesting. I was reading an article that we're so socially potentially connected all the time, and yet one of the biggest things is loneliness and isolation. And we find that in our practice that when people get to be older, they lose loved ones, they lose friends, maybe their health, their mobility is compromised, and loneliness, isolation, and boredom is what the study was saying kills people. I mean, it's amazing, and again, people will try to find some way to medicate that feeling, because what's the worst thing we've devised in punishing or torturing people is isolation. So here we are, kind of voluntarily or just by life, falling into that, and so I just want to keep focusing back on your experience and the normalcy that you grew up with. And how challenging and difficult that is to then reassess that normalcy of the background you have.
Yeah, I mean, I carried on, when I moved out, I had my own home. I mean, the alcohol carried with. And with my my profession, there's a lot of drinking throughout that. I mean, the Harley Davidson, they call it a biker bar.
Well, right.
You know, a lot of meetings, and I mean, a lot of meetings, and I mean, I even had a refrigerator in my office with beer in it for closing, and you know, guys having a hard time saying yes. Loosen up a little. You know, it was
right.
It was absolutely an everyday part, and I mean, even before it was every day, it was quite often. And then, but you know, I watched. Dad did it. Dad was just fine. Dad was very successful, and he did it while drinking. I don't have a problem. I'm doing what Dad did, and it took years of you know, the lunacy of the same thing every day, expecting a different result.
Right.
Well, and you really, really, really looked up to Dad.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you when he, you know, went out to treatment, to watch him say, I have a problem, when what he was doing was really what you were doing?
I couldn't believe it. I thought Dad was, I mean, to see him in that kind of pain, it was weakness. I thought, you know, to admit you need help is a weak thing. I was in denial. I thought, what possessed Dad to give up his, you know, his abilities to go somewhere when this is just what we do, and you know, we don't ask for help.
Right.
You bury it. You keep going. You know, nobody's going to give you sympathy. Keep pushing.
Right.
And that's so interesting because, and I think part of it's gender. He grew up with Dad. He lived with Dad. I lived with our mom. So there's a little bit of a different upbringing too. But when I saw Dad ask for help and go out to treatment, that might have been the first time in my life I looked up to him. And that was the first time in my life that I saw him demonstrate strength. And I almost kind of thought, wow, because I had seen him as very weak prior. And I thought, wow, if he can do it, I think I can.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very different reactions.
Courage can be contagious.
Absolutely.
Oh, that is very courageous, especially you say at his age, to
Yes.
not give up and to be a warrior again. I mean,
Yes.
really to fight for himself this time.
Yeah. And when I look back, I'll be kind of interested too to hear what Steve's, you know, when you did go out to treatment last year, what maybe if you thought about Dad or if you felt like any of that, you know, paved a way, even on a multi-level, right? But it's such a blessing to be 5 years out from my dad passing away, having had closure, having been able to get what I needed from that relationship before he passed, but also be able to sit and be like, yeah, he kind of did show us how to drink. I got a bottle of Malibu for my 15th birthday. That was demonstrated to me, and he showed me how to heal from that. Mm-hmm. And he showed me there was a different way. And, you know, we do look up to our parents, and we do follow the paths they go on. Maybe there's a certain time period where we resist it. We're teenagers, right?
Right.
But it's such a blessing to, I have no resentment because there was so much healing based on his example and the years that we had with him when he wasn't drinking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're right. The word blessing, it's such a gift.
Yeah.
And in your case here, it was kind of going full circle. I mean,
Absolutely.
You know, it's a cycle of life there. And he, again, I just really respect that courage to not give up and to know that it's a blessing for not only him to do that, but also for you guys. And,
Yeah.
Because it can get in the way. I mean, I've seen addictions, again, all kinds of addictions get in the way of relationships. And it's unfortunate because it really creates a separation that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. When he read that essay he wrote, one thing he said was, you know, if I haven't gone to Vietnam, I wouldn't have been an alcoholic. And he said, I would have been a better father to you. And, you know, I needed to hear that.
Yes.
And I was able to receive that from a place of empathy and understanding. I mean, it was very, very sad to hear him say that. And it, you know, broke my heart. And I thought if I'm, you know, I don't I don't want to have that experience when I'm older. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's time for a short break. The music is cueing us out here.
Yeah.
We'll be right back to continue our conversation with Rachel Schroman and Steve Schroman, and they are sharing how it is never too late in life to find sobriety and healing. If you have a question for us, please give us a call, 952-946-6205, or text us at 612-999-3426. I'm Ken Hageland, and you are listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well. All right, welcome back, everyone. You are listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well, where we talk about helping you and your loved ones improve and enjoy your quality of life. My name is Ken Hageland, and joining me today is Rachel Schroman and Steve Schroman, and they are sharing how it is never too late to find sobriety and healing in life. Before we return to our conversation with Rachel and Steve, I want to mention this radio show is brought to you in part each week by Minnesota Hospice. Minnesota Hospice is an independent, locally owned medical practice serving our Twin Cities communities with comprehensive end-of-life health care. The team at Minnesota Hospice provides families and patients with award-winning end-of-life health care services. You may not be aware that hospice brings compassionate medical, social, emotional, and spiritual services to your home with typically no cost to you or your family. Please do not wait to learn how hospice care can benefit you and your loved ones. If you have any questions regarding end-of-life care or support, please contact the compassionate team of experts at Minnesota Hospice. They are available to answer your questions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the phone is answered by one of registered nurses. Their phone number is 952-898-1022. Once again, 952-898-1022, or simply visit them online at minnesotahospice.com. All right, let's return to our conversation with Rachel and Steve. If you have a question for us, please give us a call, 952-946-6205, or text us at 612-999-3426. All right, let's return to our conversation. I'm just fascinated, Steve, with you lived with your dad, and noticed or reflected on the fact that it was a very normal thing to have alcohol as a part of daily life, and again, partly as it's a natural thing in the area of his interest and your interests as a vocation, just kind of a cultural thing, and so tell us about how his decision at a point in his life to say, you know what, I need help, and how that impacted you, and how that may have helped you or hindered you in your progress down your journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, my journey started a little over 3 years after he passed.
Okay.
And I, at the time, I was self-employed. I was completely isolated for my job, and at that point, pretty much my home life. And I was a self-employed detailer, something Dad and I loved to do together. So I spent a lot of time alone trying to make a business work through addiction, and I coincidentally was in the shop that he ran his business out of. So it was I didn't realize I was starting my spiritual journey, because I spent a lot of days using and looking up at the ceiling going, Dad, help. I was very desperate. Everything was failing around me, and it wasn't quick. It took a while. I mean, it was a slow bottom, but the sensation of failure was constant, and I had help. It was there, but I didn't want to let anyone in because I didn't want to, again, sign of weakness.
Right. Be vulnerable. Yeah.
There was no such thing as vulnerability.
Right.
Not one bit. I wouldn't let someone see me cry. I wouldn't let someone see me panic, scared. It was all a mask. But if someone asked me, oh, I'm great, I'm wonderful, business
Right.
is fantastic, I wish I could work through the night, which I was because it wasn't working.
Right.
And, Dad had someone in his ear. His help was much quickly accepted. I had a similar, and again, it was my sister.
Yeah.
In the years leading up to my treatment, she had always mentioned it, just mentioned it. That was it. Just
Okay.
say,
Wasn't pushing it.
not at all.
Okay.
Never pushed it. She said, Steve, this helped me, and I'm more than happy to help you. And no.
Well, again, vulnerability.
Exactly.
Right. You're in control.
Yeah, treatment, take me away from my home.
Right.
I got too much going on here. I've got to save this, at the time,
Yeah.
burning shipwreck. I can pull this up. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And it was in my mind, and as time went, I continued to use. I wasn't drinking. I quit drinking. It's kind of interesting. I quit drinking a year and a half up until I went into treatment. But I was still using marijuana every day. It was, I just switched coping. Home life, still terrible. I was in a very bad, very abusive relationship. And my mom and my sister were watching it from afar. And I didn't think anybody knew, because that's the thing about an addict. We're such great camouflagers. We're fine. But it was completely obvious. And they were just sitting. And I'm so thankful they were just watching, because you can't intervene.
Right.
Because, I'm doing something bad. Watch this. Right?
True.
And I just needed to see that point when Dad, that point of what Dad saw was, I surrender. Help.
Yeah.
And it was all over the phone. Rachel lived in St. Paul. I lived in Dubuque, Iowa, and it was all over the phone. And I remember, I think I've said before, there's not a lot of moments in my life where I remember absolutely, and I remember the conversation, help, please.
Yeah.
I cannot do this. This shouldn't be like this.
Right.
And like I said, 5 days later, she walked me into my 90-day treatment in Boulder with a suitcase in one hand and my hand in her other.
Wow.
And left me with nothing but encouragement. She said, all you have to do is be honest, transparent, and get ready. Vulnerable.
Right.
And I couldn't help but think, I remember hearing stories about Dad's treatment, and he went into this, and before long, he was the one. He was relating with guys. He was helping guys. He was calling home saying, Stevie, some of these guys are your age, and I just want to help them so much. And, I went into treatment, and yeah, for the first while I was terrified. I'm not going to lie, there was tears.
Yeah.
But it didn't take long to where I felt I was in the right place, and I said, damn, I'm going to make the most of this, just like Dad did.
Yeah.
And I found it to be one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done, to be able to be in a place where I was being helped and realized that I could help others. It was wonderful.
And as a place that allowed you to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you just mentioned that Rachel said, just be yourself,
Mm-hmm.
be honest.
Yeah.
And I tell you, that's really hard to do.
Oh yeah, I was the last thing I was for 10 years was myself.
Yeah.
I was not. It was all
Right.
a mask.
Right.
I wasn't allowed to be myself.
Because of your perception,
My perception.
or your father's perception, or just
I didn't feel I was accepted
got it.
as a person.
Yeah.
That if I was my true color, my true self were to be out, I would not be accepted by even the people closest to me.
Wow.
And again, there couldn't be there's nothing more false.
Right. I was going to say, how about the biggest lie?
Yes.
Yeah. To I don't know how we all get caught up in that, but it's just human nature.
It is.
And
Well, I think some of that too, when you talk about culture and community, Dad and Steve were really in this Harley culture of you're tough and you wear your leathers and when Dad got sober and started showing up differently, I mean, he was later in life. I think some of those guys soften a little, although if you told them that, they'd probably get mad, right? But they soften a little as they get older. But I remember one of the first times Steve called me from treatment, he'd call me every day and for a while. And he called me from treatment and he said, gosh, we had this meeting and this guy was talking and I just related it to it so much and it was just so raw and I started crying and he was crying and we hugged. And I was like, rock on. That's called authentic human connection.
Right.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome. And that's appropriate and that's needed and it's especially needed by men. Mm-hmm. And my dad was very sensitive. Both of you,
Mm-hmm.
Dad and Steve, they're both very sensitive, very emotional, really caring, really empathetic. Vietnam and the Harley community, maybe not the most nurturing space for that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it takes a lot of courage. As we talked about earlier in the show, it really is the most courageous thing to do is to accept help. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like your dad really paved the way for both you guys.
Yeah.
In terms of just you being courageous too. I mean, like I said, courage and courageousness can be so helpful for other people to see it because it just shows that we can do this. We can do this and we can do it together. Mm-hmm.
And it's I want to say trendy right now, but you hear a lot people saying break the cycle.
Yes.
Break the cycle, break the cycle, break the family pattern. And Grandpa Schroman drank a lot, and Dad did, and at the end of life, 5 years before he passed away, I mean, it's kind of that end of life chapter for him. He broke the cycle, and it doesn't have to be break the cycle when you're 18, break the cycle in your 20s. Steve and I aren't the generation breaking that. It happened ahead of us. It's happening a little differently with our generation. Who knows what will happen with the next? And I think that's important for people to recognize and hear. It's truly never too late.
Right. Mm-hmm. And we talked earlier about just the fact that it's so easy. We live in a society that we just blame everything on everybody else. It just, in a sense, it's hard to take accountability sometimes for things because again, whether it's a normal type upbringing or the pressures from friends and family, there's just a lot of, and plus all the marketing that goes on. I mean, we have 10,000 messages a day that we're being blasted with. So you almost do have to step out of the track. You got to step out, and whether it's a treatment center or getting help from a family member, someone who you can trust, to get into that environment where you can start to really re-examine and look at yourself, and then let that healing begin. And I'm just so amazed at how, looking at you two here, just the struggles that you went through in your life, but that your parents, your father, made such an impact on you for the decision he made later in life.
Yes.
And that just is very admirable. All right. The music is cueing us out here. It's time for a short break, folks. We'll be right back to continue our conversation with Rachel Schroman and Steve Schroman. And they are here sharing how it is never too late in life to find sobriety and healing. If you have a question for us, please give us a call, 952-946-6205, or you can text us your question at 612-999-3426. I'm Ken Hageland, and you are listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well. All right, welcome back, folks. You are listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well, where we talk about helping you and your loved ones improve and enjoy your quality of life. My name is Ken Hageland, and joining me today is Rachel Schroman and Steve Schroman, brother and sister, and they are sharing how it is never too late in life to find sobriety and healing. In other words, never give up, right? Never give up. If you have a quick question for us, folks, this is the last segment. Please give us a call, 952-946-6205, or you can text us at 612-999-3426. All right, Rachel, in your profession, elder law attorney, you deal with a lot of people, generational people, and there are all the things going on with there. But people who are, maybe coping with, lifelong type things, and maybe things weren't a problem when they were younger or middle-aged, and as they get older, these things maybe can become more of a problem, and people are struggling with coping with that. Maybe tell us some of the things that you experience in your professional life with clients and people that you know.
Sure. I'd say when some of these conversations around substance use or using alcohol to cope come up in my profession, a lot of the times, in fact, most of the time, it's not with individuals where this has been a lifelong thing. In fact, the very first exposure that I had to Alcoholics Anonymous was at an elder law conference. And I was at this elder law conference as a law student, and I saw Alcoholics Anonymous, and I kind of thought, well, what the heck?
Right.
Like, this is elder law.
Right.
And I went to the session because I was very intrigued, and they talked about how some people live their entire life, never have a problem with alcohol, never have a problem with it. And then later in life, they do, because a number of things can happen. Retirement, maybe work and consistency, and that life's purpose of having a career, that could be, well, one, it can be a coping mechanism. I've experienced that, right? Working, having the schedule keeps me on track. But also retiring can be very hard. It can be a sense of loss of a life's purpose. It's a hard next chapter to embark on. It's loss of community. It's loss of that social support. Alcohol is a great tool to make you feel okay, and so people find themselves turning to that. I've heard that from clients. We also have, as you kind of talked about a little bit earlier with us, loss. There's a lot of loss later in life, which leads to isolation. I've had clients come in who maybe they've never been married, they don't have kids, and they say, I don't have anyone anymore. My friends are gone, or my friends can't get out anymore, or, you have these experiences. I had a gentleman in my office a couple months ago, and he had lost his wife about 6 months earlier. And we were going through the legal stuff, and, you kind of have conversations as you go through. And a little bit randomly, he said, well, I've been a little uncomfortable with how much I've been drinking. And then continued with the legal conversation. And I just made a little note of that. Yeah. And then we talked about the tangible legal things, and then I said, I'd like to come back to a comment you said earlier, if it's okay. I said, you said you're a little uncomfortable with your drinking. Could we talk about that? He goes, oh, well, here's just what I meant about it, and I probably shouldn't have said it. And I said, no, you can have said that. I want to talk to you. I'd love to hear about it. And he said, I get really sad at night, and I have a hard time falling asleep. And I've been having a couple beers every night. And I had never done that my whole life. And I'm finding I need to have a couple beers to be able to fall asleep. And I'm not real comfortable with it. But I don't know that that's a problem. And I said, well, take problem off the table. If you're uncomfortable with what's going on, address it. And he goes, well, I don't feel like I can go to an AA meeting. And so we looked into some resources for him. I found some elder-specific Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, because, by the way, the only requirement to go to an AA meeting is the desire to stop drinking. You don't have to walk in and say, I'm an alcoholic. If you're struggling with consuming alcohol and you want to stop, or you want support around it, AA is a fantastic place. So we found some groups that were specifically for older adults, because a lot of the life experiences are likely going to be similar, and that's where he needs that support. We found some widower support groups. just somewhere where he could lean in and learn different tools. I had been in recovery for, I don't know how many years, at the time my dad died. Done a lot of therapy. I do a lot of this stuff, right? I needed help from professionals to learn tools to cope with grieving when my dad died. I didn't know how to. When someone loses a spouse for the first time, those tools aren't intuitive. You aren't born with how to deal with that. They're ready for you to use. And so it's about that community and that support, and not feeling ashamed about getting it. So when it does come up, and you might be surprised how often things like this come up in a attorney's office, or at least in my office, but I tend to kind of pave a way for vulnerability. It's usually not after this lifelong struggle and this slow 50-year spiral to the bottom. It can be something that just kind of pops up all of a sudden.
Yeah. Well, it's a life event, and
Yes.
as you said, at a certain age, we start to have a lot of life events that happen, and even just the accumulation of those life events
Yeah.
can take its toll on a person.
Yes.
Especially when you lose your partner, when you lose somebody who you've confided in and who you can share things with. All of a sudden they're gone, and what do you do? And I can see where people look to something to help them. Well, I got melatonin, or I've got a glass of wine.
Yeah. Yep.
What's more pleasurable, to have the melatonin or a glass of wine? People will.
And what works quicker?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So you're right. It doesn't have to be something that had developed from childhood. It's things that can happen later on in life.
And it doesn't need to be a diagnosable disease
No,
either.
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's so. Again, it's nice that you have these tremendous experiences in your life to help identify and help be comfortable. I think a lot of people would be uncomfortable, even circling back to address that, but you've gone through it yourself, and I think what a great benefit to other people who are there sharing things in a very safe environment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a confidential, safe environment, right? So
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
you do have a great opportunity then to to hear from people.
Yes.
That's great.
Very fortunate.
Yeah. Well, we got just another minute left. Is there anything you want to pass along here to the audience, other than never give up hope?
I mean, it's never too late to lean into your support staff, your support, even if you don't think you have any. There's somebody that's willing to listen, that cares about you. And there's nothing wrong with the simple words of, I need help.
Yeah.
This is one of the greatest things I ever learned. I need help.
Wow. And it's made you obviously a better person. I've just met you for the first time today, and I just feel a great connection. You just are very authentic, and
Thank you.
I think that's a great attribute to where you're at in your life right now.
Living the best version of myself.
That's fantastic. All right, we're at the end of the show, folks. I want to thank Rachel Schroman and Steve Schroman for sharing their stories, and also sharing how it is never too late in life to find sobriety and healing. So Rachel and Steve, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Please contact us with any questions or comments you have regarding today's conversation. You can reach us anytime by voice or text at 612-999-3426. Please join us again next Saturday at noon for another broadcast. And thank you for listening to Living Healthy and Aging Well, where we talk about your health and your life. Until next time, choose to live well.